Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you as always for stopping by. I am grateful. I took this shot of the moon this morning. I leave the house at about 6:05. Here in Africa, we're near the equator, so sunrise and sunset tends to be pretty static all the year round, and this was a shot of the moon as I got in the car at 6:10. I like this message from Madame Lagarde, of whom I'm a great admirer, from Chatham House, and I think she's absolutely correct. I've been watching her closely, particularly her reactions as she's found herself in close proximity to Ivanka Trump. Macro thoughts, as I've said before, crude oil price target of $32 a barrel. Goldman Sachs is talking about it falling below 40 now. I'd like to think I was one of the first to call that. And I follow a chap called Lee_Sachs. This is where crude oil futures settled yesterday, $44.40, up 0.38%. And increasingly, as I said, I think it's a Wizard of Oz moment. I don't think there's anyone behind the curtain. Global government bond yields, take a look, and we've continued to see a spike higher in these. We're in a price disequilibrium, which was achieved by these lashings of free money. Stimulus is now being withdrawn. Crispin Odey says drunken markets are ready to topple. The credit cycle boosted by loose monetary policy has peaked, and there's a widespread slowdown in the auto, commodity, industrial, and retail sectors, Odey wrote in a letter to investors. Unlike previous dips since the financial crisis, central banks aren't responding by printing more money. The chances of car crashes everywhere are rising, he said. Enjoy the hot summer. Repeating a similar statement last month. Goes back to what I wrote on the 12th of September, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. And I said a lot of risk calculations are based on value at risk, VAR. Essentially, you overlay a volatility measure over the portfolio, you calculate how much money is on the line. Central banks have suppressed volatility, therefore in real terms, investors are now holding bigger positions at these currently artificially suppressed levels. If volatility spikes, I said positions are going to be reduced en masse. Or to put it another way, and borrow the lyrics from the Eagles song Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man. We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. And I said then, which was September, we're now in July, what is clear is that we are at the fag end of the party. And I also said then, this is going to pop, and when it pops, the wizardry won't work anymore, and at that moment there is going to be one heck of a move. Take a look at this ratio of VVIX, expected volatility, to volatility trades, near highest since 2006. According to Holger, that might be signaling a market surprise in the making. 10 years ago today, a big downgrade kicked off a crash in subprime mortgage bonds, you will remember. Have a look at the S&P 500 chart. This has had a good run. I think it's time to book your gains and take off for the summer. Bank of Japan made itself clear on Friday that the 0% target for 10-year JGB bond yields, the yield curve control, they like to call it, would be aggressively defended, and that's why we've seen a move higher in dollar-yen. Let's go to some home thoughts. The flamingos are back. This is Lake Elementaita via Ben's Stake. It's a marvelous situation. And the Serena, which is there, is very special as well. I like this photograph of peaches that I found in the New Yorker. I've been listening to some felonious monk, don't blame me. and some also to Fadhili Williams's Malaika. The reason I went back to that was because of Paul Theroux, in an article in the Wall Street Journal about Fadhili William in 1965. I landed a job teaching English at Makerere University in Uganda. For the previous 2 years, I'd been in Malawi in the Peace Corps. Though I spoke the major Malawi language, Swahili was the common language in Uganda, and I was determined to learn it. Malaika by Kenyan singer Fadhili William captivated me for its proper Swahili and its romance. I first heard the song on a jukebox at City Bar in Kampala, Uganda. I was there with friends having a beer. The record had been released a few years earlier, hugely popular. At the time I was 24 and single. He had a very good time. I had a good paying job and a car. I was out and about all the time in clubs and bars. The things young heedless guys do. The moment I heard the lyrical recording, I wanted to hear it over and over again. The record opens with an electric guitar playing a simple descending folk melody. Behind the guitar is a rhythm guitar and an electric bass played by Williams' backup combo. Listen to it. The link is there. Fadhili Williams, Malaika. Political reflections. The Israeli Prime Minister tweeted that he met today with the Rwandan President Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame struck a seemingly strategic alliance with Israel. Russia's Sherpa, Moscow satisfied with G20 summit results. TASS agencies reporting, why not? From the New Yorker, David Remnick, for now we live in a moment when the President of the United States is, without shame, trying to intimidate the people whose business it is to come to an honest reckoning. He tries to intimidate the press. He has fired an FBI director and considered going further. It's reasonable to wonder why, without assuming too much too soon. Donald Trump Jr. met with a Russian who promised damaging material on Clinton. He's admitted meeting a Russian lawyer last year who he says promised to reveal damaging material on Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump Jr. insisted that Natalia Veselnitskaya had provided no meaningful information on his father's rival for the presidency. Put up a photograph of her from AB. New York Books tweeted, in retrospect, there were some warning signs. Podesta, everyone here at this gas station in Stratton is talking about how Trump didn't know his son. Who's to say that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's son wouldn't be a good negotiator? Hadrian is 3 years old, asks Deutsche Welle. And of course that's referencing Trump now is defending how his daughter Ivanka sat in for him at a G20 meeting. Jared Kushner's also caught up in the news, and I just said he's the broker of our times, the Adnan Khashoggi of the king at the court of King Donald, the Trumpster. Loonie, which is the Canadian dollar, bulls get cold feet ahead of crucial Bank of Canada meeting this week. It's widely expected, though some people seem to say that I think they'll hike rates. I'm pretty certain of it. That's what they've been talking about. Not to do it now would be a very poor show. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro dollar 113.90, dollar index 96.19, Japanese yen 114.36, Swiss franc 0.9679, the pound 128.93, the Australian dollar, which had a bit of a run this morning, 0.7617 now, India rupee 64.475, South Korean won 1151.35. Brazilian real 322.54, Egyptian pound 17.8850. You know I like Egypt on a carry basis. South African rand 13.4562, bearish on the rand. Dollar index 93.50, which is some ways away, is the key area of support in case you're wondering. But we're finding some kind of support around these levels, and I think that's on the basis that we're going to see a continued sell-off in the yen. Euro dollar, as I said, 113.90. My new target is 117.50. The worst performing stock in the Dow this year, General Electric, down 16% year to date, retesting February 2016 lows. That's from Charlie Pinello. Gold, last time I took a look, 12.10. The precious metals have been absolutely hammered. Silver slid for an 8th straight day yesterday, now trading at $15.57. Interesting article in the Wall Street Journal, oil up, oil down, blame the algorithms. And this whole business around algorithmic trading has really taken over across so many markets. Sub-Saharan Africa, Urugwiro village, which is a Twitter handle for the president of Rwanda. President Kagame is now at the Grove of Nations, where he will be the 97th head of state to plant a tree. Zambian opposition is railing against emergency powers. Monday accused President Edgar Lungu of endangering the country's democracy and plotting a dictatorship after he invoked emergency powers under the constitution. Lungu last week gave the police increased powers of arrest and detention, alleging that opposition parties were behind a string of arson attacks intended to create terror and panic. The president denied he was establishing a dictatorship in Zambia until recently, a relatively stable country, and accused his rivals of trying to overturn last year's election results. It is clear that Lungu's actions are premeditated and designed to strengthen the hand of dictatorship. Several fires, including one that burnt down the main market in the capital Lusaka last week, have been at the center of rising tensions in Zambia. China's foreign policy experiment in South Sudan is an interesting article by ICG. China's long-standing principle of non-interference in other states' internal affairs is evolving with its growing global footprint. As Chinese overseas investment and business links grow in scope and depth, Beijing faces increasing threats to its citizens' economic interests and international reputation. That in turn has confronted China with the inherent limitations of its traditional hands-off foreign policy posture. How it responds over time will have a profound impact on Beijing's international role. So that's an interesting development. Zimbabwean bank suspends pay TV payments over foreign shortages, always an early warning signal. South African all share up 3.03% this year, dollar versus rand 13.4558. We've broken out of just over the top of the range, which was 13.40. We might go back in again, or we might actually move sharply towards 14.40 over time. Egypt's core inflation increases to 31.95% year on year in June. The Egyptian pound is just below 18 and is a buy, in my opinion. Nigerian all shares up 21.38% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 17.84% year to date. My piece over the weekend, which was published today, was how opportunity is knocking for Kenya's mining sector. Recent events in both Tanzania and South Africa's mining sectors are tipping both jurisdictions into an uninvestable and twilight zone. Tanzania's parliament passed the Written Laws Act. Its provisions include granting the government stakes of at least 16% in mining companies operating in the East African country, with the option to acquire up to 50%. The Tanzania Chamber of Minerals and Energy had warned in a submission to Parliament that the legislation would make Tanzania an unattractive destination for mining investment. The law enables the government to renegotiate contracts with mining and energy companies. The proposed legislation isn't providing sufficient rights nor the framework shareholders and investors expect when investing in the exploration and production sector. The Oil and Gas Association of Tanzania said in a letter sent to lawmakers before they began debating the legislation. And this is important: sanctity of contracts, a competitive, stable fiscal framework, and international arbitration are a keystone to the investment decisions. The ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange, has basically asked listed companies with operations in Tanzania's mining sector to request a trading hold until the content of Tanzania's new legislation is better understood. Acacia Mining, the biggest gold producer in Tanzania, has seen its share price halve in 12 months. The Tanzanian mining sector, other than those like Acacia who are in situ, is now shuttered. There is no insane enough investor, I'm sure there are some, but at what kind of price, who would even contemplate an investment now. Similarly, South Africa, which has entered the twilight zone in President Zuma's twilight moments of his presidency, The Economist in its latest edition said, mining firms are also being hurt by government policies. A new mining charter introduced last month by South Africa's mining minister Mosebenzi Zwane would force companies to ensure that at least 30% of their shares are in black hands, up from the current minimum of 26%. Under the new charter, companies would be required to maintain this level of black ownership, regardless of whether black investors sell out. They would also have to pay at least 1% of their turnover each year to their black shareholders. Had this rule been in effect in 2016, black shareholders would have got 5.8 billion rand, and out of the total of 5.9 billion rand paid as dividends, almost nothing for anyone else, notes the Chamber of Mines of South Africa. Therefore, this has now become, in my opinion, a unique open sesame moment for CS Dan Kazungu and Kenya's nascent mining sector. We need to shout from the rooftops, Kenya Mining Inc. is open for business, and we believe in the sanctity of contracts. It's as easy as that. In this political silly season, there's been plenty of fake news about the mining sector from all sorts. Base Titanium's Kwale Mineral Sands mine represents 60% of Kenya's mining sector. It's been a rip-roaring success. And allowed me to put some facts out there. Base made a 26 billion shilling investment, and the mine is expected to contribute close to 100 billion shillings to GDP over the life of the mine. In 2016, Kenya earned 13 billion shillings in export revenue. Workforce is 65% from Kwale, 95% Kenyan. 640 folks are directly employed. 1,400 jobs indirectly. For every direct job, 4.3 additional jobs are supported in the wider economy. 3.7 billion is spent annually with local businesses. Significant investments have been made in community programs focused on livelihood development, health, community, infrastructure, and education. Currently, BASE is a program with over 1,000 local farmers involved in agriculture, focusing on cotton, potatoes, sorghum, cowpea. BASE has partnered with Kwale County Government for investment in health infrastructure, including medical centres, dispensaries, and the Kwale Blood Bank. There are over 950 beneficiaries from scholarship and bursary programs. BASE will hand legacy infrastructure like the birth of Likoni to Kenya Inc. at the end of the mine life. I am from the coast. Kwale was a dead economic zone. Please go take a look for yourself. If you were to look around the world, there's not been as effective an intervention. BASE is top of class. What BASE has achieved in Kwale will be its calling card if it were to come calling in any other country in the world. Therefore, this is a unique moment for Kenya Inc. when it can leapfrog old mining jurisdictions like Tanzania and South Africa. And I concluded by saying, over to you, Cabinet Secretary, Carpe Diem. The Kenyan President, Chief Justice clash as elections approach. They are taking us for fools, he told an election rally in the western county of Baringo, referring to the judiciary. I want to tell those in courts, we have respected you, but do not think respect is cowardice, and we will not allow our opponents to use the courts and to intimidate the IEBC, thinking they will win using the back door. Chief Justice Maraga released a statement a few hours later saying, when political leaders cast aspersions on the administration of justice based on a misinterpretation of my statements, it has the potential to impair public confidence in our courts, and this concerns me a great deal. The IEBC released this press conference on the 10th of July regarding the procurement of presidential ballot papers. Well, it's certainly become very noisy indeed, and it's not clear to me where this is all headed. And I think it was a poor decision by the executive to take on the judiciary at this point. Sarah Serum stuns the state officers with salary cuts. And I think this was a much needed strike at the political economy, about which I wrote on the 3rd of July when I said the political economy here in Kenya is supersized in relation to the size of the real economy. And I said the intrusion of the political economy into the real economy is a very expensive thing. And I was saying about the election that the real economy needs a transparent process, a first round result, and a gracious loser. So far, it doesn't look like we're going to get any of that. Nairobi, all shares up 14.08% year to date. NSE 20 is up 12.81% year to date. David Rudisha tweeted, "Moi International Stadium Kasarani shining, ready to host the world's under-18 championships here in Nairobi." I wish you a great week. Thank you once more for stopping by.